They've made so many Spider-Man movies at this point, we can rank them. And get this, we have just enough for a top 10. How fun is that? So I'm going to share my top 10, and I'm excited to hear your top 10s down below. I wonder if we'll all have, I think we might all have the same top 3 even, but maybe we'll all match our top 5s. And I bet we have the same bottom 2. All right, so to me, it's pretty much a toss-up. It's a set. It really is a set. Amazing Spider-Man 1 and Amazing Spider-Man 2 as 10 and 9. And you know what? The reason that the sequel gets a little bit of an edge for me, why I put that at number 9, is that they kind of did the death of Gwen Stacy, which is such an important moment in the Spider-Man mythology. It's weird that actually to this day, with 10 movies, nobody's actually done it justice. Isn't that bizarre, considering that it is like one of his biggest moments? But this one came pretty close, and of course, Emma Stone is so charming and wonderful that she helped a lot. Andrew Garfield, of course, was phenomenal as Spider-Man. Everybody was so excited to see him return in No Way Home. But you know what everyone always says about Andrew Garfield? If only he got a chance to do it right. Because everybody knows that the films around him weren't that good. But I want to point out that he did a great job. He's not only good with the comedic elements of the character, I think you could argue he's actually the best, of the Peter Parkers. But also his wiry swimmer's physique is more like the comics. And on that note, you also got to give the VFX teams for both of these movies major props for recreating some of Spider-Man's most famous poses. That was fun to see. But the Lizard, I know they didn't have a lot of cool villains to work with at that point, and the Lizard is like a core Spider-Man villain, but it did not work out with this movie. And then also in the first one, making Peter's father an Oscorp employee who might have been murdered, totally unnecessary. We don't need that drama with Spider-Man. And then with all due respect to Oscar winner Jamie Foxx, get better soon, Jamie. His first crack at Electro in the sequel, the amazing sequel, was a disaster. More like a Joel Schumacher Batman villain. And since those movies had come out, who would try to duplicate them? But it was like that, and that was bad. Finally, I guess everybody always likes to say that Uma Thurman did kind of a good job as Poison Ivy. I always hated her take on that character, but she did get a lot of, people said that she was the only good thing in Batman and Robin, but what kind of a compliment is that? And I do think Electro was based kind of off of her character, but not good. Either one, in my opinion. And then finally, I have to say, Garfield and Stone's real-life romance ended up totally overshadowing the movies, which is why Amy Pascal said she warned Tom Holland and Zendaya not to go down the same path. But their movies are so much better, they're never going to overshadow them. Plus, Tom Holland and Zendaya are forever, and I don't want to hear anything else. All right, so number 8, Spider-Man 3. I gotta say, so bad, it's kind of good. You can't deny that it is a meme and GIF factory that is still used to this day. And it is legendary. It's part of movie history at this point, how much Raimi and Maguire dropped the ball after 2 home runs. How do you strike out like that after hitting 2 home runs? Also, how do you mess up the Venom storyline? Seriously, how do you do that? And introducing Gwen Stacy, speaking of Gwen Stacy, it was just shocking. No, we'll never forget it. Although, have you ever watched that film more than once? Maybe if you're a glutton for punishment. And I'm sure there will be some Spider-Man 3 defenders down below. But the question is, how many? All right, number 7, that's the bad movies. Everything else is good, so we just have to figure out, the order. All right, so my number 7 is Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, I really like this movie, but I do agree it's more of an MCU movie than a Spider-Man movie. In fact, fans took to calling Tom Holland's Spider-Man Iron Spider, that is from the comics, when he also was hanging out with Tony Stark a lot. But he did seem to become a character in Iron Man's corner of the MCU rather than being in his own space. Although you can't blame Robert Downey Jr. At that point, Civil War had not gone well for him with the public opinion. You all became Captain America fans overnight. He needed a corner. He needed some help. And he decided that Spider-Man would help him. It did not, actually. It just made people upset that he co-opted Spider-Man. You guys were so mean to Robert Downey Jr. He was great. All right, so anyway, Michael Keaton's take on Vulture is undeniably cool and modernizes the character in a really exciting way. He picks over the leftovers of superhero battles like a vulture. Get it? I love it. And him driving Peter Parker and his daughter to their prom with both Peter and the Vulture knowing each other's secret identities but having to speak in veiled threats in the car because Vulture's daughter Liz isn't on to either of them. That was an amazing scene. It was just shocking when it was revealed that Liz was his daughter. They did a really good job hiding that. So when he came to the door, we were all like, what? That was amazing. And of course, Tom Holland's creative decision to model his Peter Parker after Michael J. Fox, that was a really good idea. And he managed to do it in a way where it didn't seem like he was stealing Michael J. Fox, but instead, his whole thing, but instead doing an homage to him. Not to mention, Tom Holland's dance and acrobatics background also gives him an edge with Spider-Man's physicality and also his amazing chemistry with Zendaya. And just like the Vulture, Aunt May was finally pulled into the 21st century as well. I love it, Marissa Tomei, all-star. All right, number 6, Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, I love this movie. I freaking love it. I know not everybody does. I don't know why, but let me explain why I like it so much. And it's still my number 6. All right, so anyway. Speaking of making Spider-Man villains cool, who'd have ever thought you could do that with Mysterio? But they did! And we got a brilliant take. They did a great job. The Sony team, I have to say, does a good job with fake outs, right? And here, they really had us believing he was from another universe. They played up the multiverse, which was actually his cover story in the movie. So when that turned out not to be true, that was another great surprise. And it was a take on fake news and how advancements in technology is largely responsible for so much fake news. I mean, ripped from the headlines, even today. It's amazing. Mysterio better come back. And at the same time, though, Mysterio still managed to stay true to the comics. That big mid-film sequence where he plunges Spider-Man into one of his illusions, it was such a great homage to the comics. I'll never forget watching it for the first time. I was like, wow, that's a Mysterio illusion / action sequence. And it was incredible. This film, building off of the last one, which modernized, Aunt May and Vulture, here not only did they modernize Mysterio, but they modernized J. Jonah Jameson, with J.K. Simmons returning from the Raimi films. We also saw Peter reveal his secret identity to Zendaya's MJ, a vital part of the Peter Parker-Mary Jane relationship in the comics and in all mediums. But, that's got to be there. And it was great to see it finally come to fruition. All right, now we're at top 5, baby. Top 5. All right, number 5 for me is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Don't worry, no spoilers. I know this movie just came out. Now, this is a really fun film. This is top 5. I mean, it's really awesome being in the top 5. But to me, the reason it only just makes the top 5 is that it's very much still a part 1, setting up what's sure to be a phenomenal part 2. Also, I take a few points off of the lack of Miles Morales throughout. I mean, Miles, it's not even really his movie until about 20 to 30 minutes in. And then also, the movie is a bit, let's say, TikTok-y. That's how I would describe it, which might end up helping it. But I think, from an emotional standpoint and a storytelling standpoint, that detracts a little. But once it gets to the third act, that is just brilliant. And again, I can't wait for part 2. Wow! Also, artistically, it's one of the most impressive animated films I've ever seen. And I think they're going to win another Oscar. All right, number 4, the very first Spider-Man movie. The one that started it all. Not just bringing Spider-Man to the silver screen and an even larger audience, but it was one of the first major comic book movies back in the day. Sam Raimi brought an old-school, timeless quality to the film, with Tobey Maguire perfectly capturing. His casting was quite controversial at the time, but he knocked it out of the park. Capturing Peter Parker as an outsider, which is something that has made the character so relatable and made the movie version continue to be relatable. This is one of the best superhero origin movies ever made, and it holds up. When Peter Parker first tries out his powers with Danny Elfman's score coming in, chills! And the film perfectly illustrates the defining sequence for Spider-Man / Peter Parker, the death of Uncle Ben, and with great power comes great responsibility. Wow, this is Marvel's storytelling, not only at its finest, but at its core. Wow. Then number 3, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The first one. For years, comic book fans, including myself, have been trying to tell everyone what a great original character Miles Morales is. For too long, people felt it was just a race-bended version of Peter Parker, and we were like, that is not what's going on here. You need to read these comics, and I hope that you have. But this movie finally proved it. It's so good. And before Arcane and Puss in Boots 2, it was into the SpiderVerse, thank you, which revolutionized feature animation with a CGI hand-drawn hybrid beating Disney to the punch. I know they had Paperman, but they didn't make a movie. They sat on it for way too long. And SpiderVerse swung away with the Oscar. And while perfectly telling Miles Morales' origin story, the film also introduced a larger audience. Fan favorite Spider-Gwen from the comics, speaking of Gwen Stacy. Still never done the death of Gwen Stacy right, though. And then also, it was so smart to have Peter B. Parker in here, with Justin Johnson, a fabulous fit with the iconic character. When it comes to the Spider-Man mythology overall, Into the Spider-Verse has it all. All right, so top 2. Oh, top 2. And I'm sure I'll be interested to see which of you agree with me and which of you don't. So runner-up is Spider-Man 2. Oh, let me explain. Now, creatively, this is the ultimate Peter Parker Spider-Man movie. And I want to say Peter Parker because, of course, now we have Miles Morales. But it's the ultimate Peter Parker Spider-Man movie. A well-meaning scientist turned villain, Peter Parker at the Daily Bugle, and his superhero life messing up his personal life in every possible way, which was something that made Spider-Man such a unique character to begin with in the comics. Other superheroes live more exciting lives under the mask. They turn into like James Bond. But what makes Peter Parker different is that his heroics are truly a sacrifice, destroying his personal life, and highlighting his mantra that with great power comes great responsibility. And that train sequence, not just brilliantly and thrillingly filmed with Harrison Ford-level facial silly expressions from Tobey Maguire, but an emotional ending with that crowd. And once again highlighting that Peter Parker is an everyman. And Alfred Molina proved to be the ultimate Raimi Spider-Man villain with a fantastic origin story here. That surgery sequence, classic Raimi as well. And he was a sympathetic villain and another early warning from Hollywood about the dangers of artificial intelligence. Why did nobody listen? And then that means the best Spider-Man movie right now to date is Spider-Man No Way Home. And I told you, I didn't even love this movie, but I respect it. Spider-Man 2 walked so that No Way Home could run. Yes, while Spider-Man 2 represents early Spider-Man comics, No Way Home represents Spider-Man comics today with the SpiderVerse and finally giving us, they were one short, there were 5, but pretty much it's the Sinister Six. Come on. And it did not disappoint. The action sequences in this movie were phenomenal. And again, the message of sacrifice for Peter Parker, this time losing Aunt May, and that loss reflected in the other Spider-Men. That was beautiful. But also, he lost MJ, as Peter Parker was forced to make the entire world forget him. They didn't forget Spider-Man, but they forgot Peter Parker in order to save the multiverse. But that sacrifice not only saved the multiverse, but it saved the MCU Spider-Man, finally freeing him of Iron Man's influence so that at the end of the film, this was my favorite part, he became the everyman that the character has been famous for since the very beginning. His new apartment, which is like a Friends level, struggling apartment in New York, but his cool, awesome, homemade suit, swinging by Rockefeller Center at Christmas. Oh my God, it was perfect. Sure, the film sometimes feels like a Saturday Night Live sketch, but this thing was a labor of love, and it came together at the last minute. Took so long for everybody to sign, they had massive reshoots, but they stuck the landing. It's truly the ultimate Spider-Man movie, and it has almost $2 billion to show for it, right? Putting it up there with the greatest crowd pleasers of all time. And this is a huge feather in its cap. It is the first film. They got there first. Others were trying, but No Way Home got to theaters first. During the Hollywood nostalgia craze to bring all different versions of a franchise together in a single film. And the results were potent. Talk about a scientific experiment. I loved it. So that's and still, we'll see, but so far nobody's managed to do it better yet. So that's my ranking of all 10 Spider-Man films so far. Share your own down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.